welcome in, guys. Welcome in. Today, we are going to be doing a story review for the brand new Wuthering Waves 3.1 story. We'll be reviewing the main story quest since we have yet to play the Luuk quest. Maybe I'll do a mini review of the Luuk quest after. But yeah, I have a lot of things to say. I've written down some thoughts here on my notepad, and I'm very excited to chat with you guys about the story. I know I'm doing this review a little bit later. Sorry. I got very distracted by working on some covers because Aemeath took over my soul. So we will have those soon, but for now, let's do it. Let's get chatting. Overall thoughts for WUWA 3.1 story. I mean, I said this after I played it, and I still stand by this. I think that WUWA 3.1 is the best story, the best main story quest that we have in Wuthering Waves to date. It is the best one. Uncontested, for me at least. It's just like the quality of it was fantastic all around, like the presentation, and for me, most importantly, I think for me, what I have found that WUWA's weakness in their main story thus far, I personally have felt like their weakness was the writing. I think that they do like miss in a lot of aspects with their overall, I guess, main story writing. I guess how consistent it is overall, because they do a lot of moments really well, but then at the same time, sometimes they spend like way too much on one thing or spend way too little on another thing. And either way, I think overall 3.1 was the most well-crafted story that they have produced thus far, and I guess I'll talk more into details about it right now with you guys. So yeah, we'll start out with the pros then, because to be honest, this video will be mostly pros. I don't really have any cons, but for the pros, writing was fantastic. The pacing was amazing. I had no issues with any of the pacing in 3.1. The dialogue was split up by the gameplay very well. We had, moments where we did some fights. We had moments where we were on the bike, going between the different areas. I think that all of the constantly kind of shifting experience of the story made it so that it didn't feel like we were ever stagnant, whether it came to the information we were learning or just what we were doing at the time as well. Every new arc was teaching us more and more information, and when they did have some repetition, like showing us scenes again, it was done very intentionally to show us new info, like a new perspective on a scene that we had seen before. So I thought that was super, super cool. And one of the most impressive things that I really liked from 3.1 was actually how the narrative of the overarching story, especially with regards to some of the character relationships, was very well concealed. They put a lot of effort into like giving us just enough information where we couldn't really tell exactly what was going on, but at the same time could also sort of piece it together as it was happening, if that makes sense. So they gave us just enough information so that we could kind of like piece it together as they gave us the clues. And I think that is a really, really important thing to do when it comes to stories, especially when you want to have plot twists, right? When you want to have reveals that are surprising and impactful on the viewer, you don't want to be too predictable. I personally was very surprised at certain revelations, and I was constantly kept on my toes with trying to come up with theories of what was going on. So that was super, super well done. And yeah, the characters like Luuk, I think Luuk as a side character, because he was a side character in this story, I think Luuk was integrated in the story in a very, very natural manner. He didn't overstay his welcome. As much as I love Luuk, as much as I love him, and I enjoyed every single moment he was on screen, he didn't stay for too long. They didn't, drag it out. He stayed for the perfect amount of time for him to journey with us to learn some information in the space station, and then, said his goodbyes in preparation for, us to see him later in the Luuk character story that's going to come out this week. So I think that was very, very good. He actually still had a role in teaching us new information that led to revelations in the overarching plot that we had here. Navora was also a very interesting NPC. Obviously, she was very suspicious. In the Frostlands, was that actually Navora? I think most of us are doubting that right now. But I think it was a very good introduction to her as a character, or whoever is pretending to be her as a character. And that also leads to some good setup for, I'm sure they're going to continue her storyline in the upcoming patches in Lahai, and that we will get to see more of who that actually was and what they were trying to do. And also, it was really, really cool to see some teases for the future characters as well, with Sigrika, we just met her for a moment, so we didn't really get anything from her, but Lucilla, we actually got to interact with Lucilla, and we got to learn some information from her, and she, you know, kind of taught us a bit more about our, I guess, role or the Academy's perspective on us as an individual at the moment with regards to everything that's going on, so that was also very interesting. I think it is a very good step towards them integrating more of the future characters in the story, and I was very, very happy about that too. On to the big one, the biggest thing, and what I think is one of the biggest strengths in the WUWA 3.1 story was Rover and Aemeath's relationship. Rover and Aemeath's relationship, for me, was one of my favorite things in 3.1 because it was such a breath of fresh air. Literally, because we also went up to the Frostlands and there was a lot of fresh air. But sorry, bad joke. But no, Rover and Aemeath's relationship came out of left field, and it was really, really nice to also see this brand new character dynamic in the game. Because thus far, right, you know, there's the whole like Wuthering Waves. Is it like everyone jokes about it, but it's also kind of not really a joke because a lot of the stories are kind of structured in that way. But I think that seeing these different character dynamics, seeing this new character dynamic with Rover and Aemeath, which was not necessarily a waifu dynamic, but literally a, you know, father-daughter or like parent-daughter relationship, depending on which Rover you play, was really, really amazing. And it also added so much more natural character development to Rover as a character as well, right? Because one of the things is that I always really enjoy is getting to see characters interacting with one another, getting to see them how they act with other people, because the way a character acts with, you know, you might be different from how that character might act with someone else, right? So getting to actually witness those different dynamics can actually teach you so much about characters without even just telling it to you through exposition. So I think that that is an amazing thing, and I'm very, very glad that they decided to go that path with Aemeath and Rover, because we actually got to learn so much about Rover in this particular story. I mean, and speaking of Rover, right? Rover's character development and plot in 3.1, I think that this is the story where we have literally gotten the largest amount of Rover plot and insight into Rover as a person in any patch in this game ever. Like for me, my second best one was 2.5 in terms of Rover's character development, but even that is like blown out of the water by this one, because we got to learn so much lore. We got to learn so much about and got to see this completely different side to Rover, and how Rover is not just this, you know, kind of perfect MC. Rover is not this kind of perfect savior who is here to help everyone in Solaris 3, but is also a victim to, you know, greater powers at play. And we don't know the full extent of that yet, obviously, but getting to see those glimpses, see Rover actually struggling so on such a like, you know, a level that I think a lot of us can connect with when it comes to, you know, homesickness and wanting to just feel at home and wanting to return home, things like that. It was so impactful and made me empathize so much more with Rover as a character compared to, you know, the past 2 years of story, right? Like they did so much in this patch to really give us that view of Rover that is so different from everything that we've seen thus far, which I love so much. Because the thing about WUWA, it is a very MC-centric story, right? Obviously, the characters do kind of do their own thing, but at the same time, the story is completely centered around Rover as an individual, which is fine. There's nothing wrong with that. But if that is the case for the story, then Rover needs to be a very strong character. And I think up until now, we have not really gotten to see Rover develop on that level. So then 3.1 was fantastic for that and was so amazing and so pivotal, I think, in the grand scheme of the Wuthering Waves story as well. Because now that we can actually see Rover as a person, I think we can also have a brand new lens to view past interactions, future interactions with Rover and other characters as well, and that will really change, I think, our perspectives on things that happen from this point onwards, which is fantastic. Yeah, and then also in the storytelling itself, I really liked that they did more POV shifts. They did a lot of POV shifts between Rover, Aemeath, you know, past Rover, past Aemeath. We got to see a non-linear narrative of how the story and how the information was being presented to us, which also added to the air of mystery and how well that they were able to hide information, right? So I really, really liked that, and I hope that they continue to do more of these perspective changes in the future, because it offers them a really, really nice opportunity to show us so many more sides to different characters. The potential that they have for the ways they can tell the story just gets completely unleashed. So fantastic. And I really, really hope that they continue. Trying to tell the story through these creative way. Yeah, and there was so much lore. Oh my god, there was so much lore this patch. I can't go through every single piece of lore because I will be here for hours, but the amount of lore that they gave us this patch is, again, right, this is connected, and this ties into Rover as well. They gave us so much important lore for the overarching Wuthering Waves world. Obviously very directly connected to Rover because Rover is the main character. And that was so amazing. Like, I feel like we progressed in the overarching story so much more than we did in, like, you know, I guess long stints in other regions, right? And I think that is fantastic because now that the plot is really picking up, it's gonna go crazy. It's gonna go crazy, and it's gonna be so wild. And it just makes me so curious about where they're gonna go from here. So yeah, another thing too is I feel like because this story was obviously very focused on Aemeath and Rover, I think that one of the reasons why we haven't seen a lot of people, including myself, it didn't feel like as much of a companion quest, right? Because, you know, there's the whole debate over how WUWA tends to write their stories in a sort of companion questy way. So even though if you look at it objectively, we spent so much time, you know, with Aemeath and learned so much about her and spent so much time with her as an individual. So one might think that this kind of felt like a companion quest, but it didn't. It didn't at all, because of all of the lore and all of the main plot story that we got, and how like related and connected Aemeath is to it, and also just everything there. So then that, again, it's like because the story is progressing in such a big way, even though we spent so much time with Aemeath, to me, it didn't feel like as companion questy as some of the other quests. So I think, like, when it comes to WUWA and maybe like finding a balance between wanting to write their companion questy stories and also making it in their main story, I think they should take 3.1 as a very solid example of, okay, this is a very good balance of we can spend time with the characters and learn about them. And obviously not every character will have the same sort of lore and plot relevance that Aemeath does, but they can maybe use 3.1 as a sort of, you know, stepping stone or a like baseline of, okay, so we want to write a story and we write like strong companion quest stories. So then how can we make it so that this quest is important enough to the overarching lore that it doesn't feel like we are just kind of going off on a side quest, right? So I think 3.1 is a it's like a very good step towards being able to make the main story feel a lot more, like, I guess, overall encompassing and not as kind of like fractured. Fractured, I think, is the word. And oh my god, the biggest thing with the plot, and my favorite thing that I've seen from this so far, I've probably said that 3 times, but this is so important. The stakes in 3.1 were followed through on. What do I mean by stakes? I mean that the consequences, the stakes, the dangers, all of those things that were set up throughout this story culminated in, obviously, Aemeath having to pay a very, very steep price in order to save us. And at the end of the story, we are left feeling kind of empty. We are left with a shell, a husk of Aemeath, and merely having a fragment of her consciousness left, or of her power left. And I feel like that is so important. Like, this story, it wasn't anything like Shorekeeper's story, where she sacrifices and then we immediately save her. It wasn't like Cardathia dying and then she immediately gets revived. It wasn't like Furlova getting sent to the Beyond permanently, but then just magically appearing in the story at a later date with no explanation. There were actual proper stakes that they set up here, and then they let us really kind of reflect and absorb the consequences of Aemeath's choice. the point of the stakes are not necessarily that it always has to end tragically, right? Because sure, we might save her in the end, but that there has to be a price for everything that occurred. The price being that Aemeath is now lost to the, I forgot what it was called, but like limbo, essentially, and that we're gonna have to go probably do a lot of things to try to bring her back. I'm guessing, and this might be just me being hopeful, we'll have to see when the story actually comes out, is I'm assuming that as the Lynae story progresses, we're gonna keep, learning more things and find a way to, deal with Aleph, I forgot the number, Aleph 1 or whatever, and then we're probably gonna have to do a lot of things, and it's gonna be a difficult journey to try to bring Aemeath back. That in itself will be 10 times more satisfying for me as a reader, because it's not just written away and it's not just fixed because the writers told me so, but because I'll actually be able to feel that journey of bringing her back. And I really, really appreciate that. Yeah, so I think that is a huge step, because this is kind of like the first time that they have sort of done that. I think, where they actually decided to leave it off without a hopeful end. I mean, it has a hopeful end, but it's not, you know what I mean. It's not as, it's going to be a very tough journey filled with trials and tribulations that we will have to go through to bring her back. I think for the story, that's kind of all I have to say. But I mean, in terms of the story experience as a whole, the maps, oh my god. I mean, I've just been running around this one, but the maps have been stunning. All of Aemeath's Mindscape maps were so pretty. The bosses were also like so fun. And oh my god, the music, the amount of pretty music that we got in 3.1 is insane. I swear to god, there's at least like 7 different Aemeath songs. Not even including her EPs and stuff, but even just in the story, holy guacamole. They were absolutely spoiling us. They were spoiling us so much with the music, and it was fantastic. So yeah, amazing. So I think for like the pros, those are like the main things I wanted to talk about. Let me know if there's other things that you guys felt were really, really fantastic that I might have missed in the comments. So, but for me now, on to the cons, I guess. I mean, to be honest, I don't really have that like any cons from 3.1. To me, this is the best WUWA story so far, so I don't really have any complaints about anything. I think that they improved basically everything I wanted them to improve from previous patches, experience-wise, mostly writing-wise. So yeah, I mean, maybe they could show even more of the future characters, mayhaps, but that is a bit more like of a personal preference, I say, because I also don't want them to just force the characters into the story if they don't belong in the story, because that in itself can also cause issues. But maybe seeing like a little bit more of, Lucilla might have been cool, at least. I know Sigrika doesn't seem to have really any plot relevance right now, but Lucilla, right? Clearly she had some sort of role, so maybe we could have seen a little bit more with her, but, not a huge deal, because at least they're starting to show us the characters. So that's the first step, hopefully they'll find a way to maybe integrate the future characters a bit more into the current stories as well. Oh, one thing, I guess, that is like, I think could be improved is, I think maybe like I played in the EN dub, and I do think that like there could have been a few moments here and there that Aemeath's voice acting could have been a little bit better in terms of just like the emotional impact, I think. It wasn't as noticeable in the main story, but like one of the things that I do remember very specifically was in her, I think, Resonator trailer, one of the trailers from before, the one where she's resonating with the Exostrider. Like at the moment when she was supposed to be like super like screaming with her whole chest, with her lungs, like I personally didn't feel like it was powerful enough, and I do think that there are some moments in the like story in the game as well where she could have really like gone all out with like really getting those emotions across and getting the pain and the suffering to really resonate with us. But it wasn't like atrocious or anything. It was still like very solid for the most part. Just like a few moments here and there where I think that could have been a little bit better. Whether that was the voice direction or the performance, then obviously I don't know, because I wasn't there. I didn't voice act it. So, but as like a player, I think that yeah, maybe the direction of Aemeath could have been a little bit more like emotional in a lot of places. So Not a lot of places, in some moments. So yeah, I think for cons, that's it. Oh, and this isn't necessarily a con, but I did see some people, I saw a discussion that was more surrounding Aemeath's mannerisms, I guess, with regards to Rover, and how some people found it a bit weird since she was being too flirty or too affectionate when she's actually his daughter, or like their Rover's daughter. But it's not so much like a con per se, because I just wanted to, I guess, share my thoughts about that, because I thought it was an interesting thing that some people might find a con or not. My stance on it is that I feel like people mostly have this perception because of the expectation that we have had thus far in WUWA, that it is a like super waifu heavy game. Like basically all of the previous characters for the most part who are adults have been kind of like waifu-y for sure. So I think that people came into 3.1 with the preconceived notion that Aemeath was also going to be the like new waifu of the week. So then with the fan service that we received from Aemeath and being like a little bit affectionate, I think that people might just kind of interpreted it awkwardly. So then it's like when, oh, their expectation doesn't meet the reality, then it's like maybe they feel weird about it because they're like, oh, I thought that she was flirting with me, but then actually she's my daughter, so that's weird, right? So I feel like that is something that maybe a lot of people were kind of going through, because I actually went back through her previous trailers and marketing material, and to be honest, they did not really go that hard on the fan service, like with regards to her relationship with Rover. They focused mostly on her character, her role with the Exostrider, her past, her friendships, and things like that. And they focused like super heavily on her as an individual, rather than doing any sort of fan service with her and Rover as the main character. So that's also like kind of like for me supporting how I perceive it as that, yeah, you know, like I think most people, including myself, expected her to be a waifu. So then that's why we kind of viewed everything through a waifu tinted lens. But obviously the reality was different. So then from that point on, I guess it was, I was able to observe it differently. And I also saw some like conversations about how, you know, maybe Western families versus Eastern families, and how the cultures are kind of different when it comes to the dynamics within a family. Because I would say I am from an Eastern family, obviously. And yeah, I do think families in the East do tend to be a lot more affectionate with their parents and just overall closer. So while I don't personally think, you know, I obviously act weird in any way to my parents, I do know that if there was an outsider, someone who is very unused to that sort of relationship might look in, they might be like, oh, like, why are you like joking like that? Or like just, you know, being, I don't know. It's a hard thing to say. It's like, it's not weird, you know? It's just being like a bit more affectionate to your parents. Obviously, not on Aemeath's level, okay? I do think in WUWA, they were kind of like towing the line with fan service and like family, or like family affection versus like fan servicey affection. So they were kind of like towing the line a bit, because at the end of the day, they had to sell Aemeath as a character. But I just do think that like for a lot of people who might have found Aemeath too affectionate, or like too like crossing the line when it comes to like, let's say like flirting or whatnot, it might also just be like a bit of a cultural difference as well, because maybe they don't have any sort of like, you know, sort of like affectionate gestures that they will ever do to their own family. So then to them it's weird, because they only ever do that with romantic partners. But yeah, anyways, I just remember that being a huge conversation, so I just wanted to touch on that, because for me, I also at first thought that she was going to be waifu of the week, but then the moment they revealed her relationship, that actually allowed me to kind of view her relationship with Rover in a completely new perspective. I personally loved it. I loved that they're giving us a new dynamic, and I didn't really have much of an issue with it personally, but I thought that was an interesting topic to bring up. I think it's mostly her outfit. If she was wearing her student clothes, people wouldn't bat an eye. They were mixing in their own attraction with the characters. Yeah, I mean, for sure as well. Aemeath wearing this outfit too. It definitely, you know, leads it down the line of waifu of the week too. But yeah, I think it's a hard line for them to kind of teeter, because they do have to sell her as a fan servicey character while at the same time wanting to write a story, a story with the, you know, that is maybe not necessarily just trying to sell you that character. So I don't know. I don't think this will be as much of an issue in the future, because now that they've like essentially broken the seal on the types of relationships they're willing to write with their playable characters, I think most people moving down the line will have a bit more of a broader expectation for the future characters and maybe the types of roles that they might have in Rover's life. So now that we've like broken the whole, you know, I guess stereotype of waifu of the week, because they're not only making waifus, they're also making very, very, you know, touching relationships, whether it's like familial, romantic, there's all different types of relationships now. So now, whenever we look at a future character, we can't just assume. We can't just assume, right? So I think that will be, I think it's not really an issue, but I just thought it would be interesting to bring up. Wait, one more thing on the family thing. Me, my brother and sister, Asian, are all grown up and we are still very affectionate towards our parents. Hugging and snuggling are all pretty normal. Yeah, exactly, right? Like for me, it's like, I don't do anything weird, but I'll hug my parents sometimes. I'll like, you know, yeah, well, I'll give them a hug, like an affectionate hug, things like that. But then I know people who would find that weird still, because they're like, wow, who hugs their parents? What the f? So it really is, I think it does come down to, you know, different types of relationships that you have and dynamics that you have with people in your life that can really affect how you perceive other relationships too. So okay, so yeah, well, final score, my final rating for 3.1 for the story is, drumroll please, it's a 9.5. It didn't change. My initial rating was a 9.5 and I'm remaining at a 9.5. 9.5 is the highest I'll go for stories, because I never like to give a 10, because in my head 10 means that there's no room for improvement, and there's always room for improvement. So 9.5. I think that this is the best Wuthering Waves story so far. I know I've given other stories, other WUWA patches 9.5 in the past, but this is the new 9.5. Okay? Anytime it tops, it goes to 9.5 and the previous ones get bumped down. So yeah, 9.5 for 3.1, because this is the best story. This is my favorite, and in my trying to be objective opinion, I think this is the objectively best story and also subjectively best story from WUWA that we've gotten so far. So it's a 9.5 from me. But yeah, anyways, a quick little summary to end it off. Yeah, it's the best written story so far. Fantastic main story progression and stellar characterization and world building. And also, the new relationship dynamics I think are huge for, you know, moving forward as Rover in the main story. So yeah, they went above and beyond with the new maps and the overall experience as a whole. I know I ranted a lot about the writing, because that was the thing that I was most impressed by, but dude, the overall experience, the cinematic experience was stunning. Like when we saw the Exostrider for the first time with the music, dude, took my breath away. And yeah, I think this is the patch that has given me the most hope for the future of WUWA's story, because this is the patch where they have proved that they're not afraid to break out of that sort of waifu story narrative. And it gives me a lot of faith that they're locking in on wanting to write something that's actually, you know, really solid and amazing, and not just shaping the main story based on who they want to sell as a character. So yeah, I'm very, very happy about that. And I think, and for me personally, I think 3.1 is probably, this is the patch that has gotten me truly and wholeheartedly invested in the world of WUWA as a game, because I am now so hopeful that the future will harness essentially, like, yeah, the full potential that the WUWA world has to offer, and, you know, give us all that the game has to show. And I'm locked in, guys. I'm locked in now. Kuro Games, you got me. That's my story review for WUWA 3.1. I'm so sorry if that was a little long-winded, but listen, there's so many things to talk about. So I hope you guys can understand. I hope you guys enjoyed my review. Let me know what you guys thought down in the comments down below. If you agreed or disagreed with anything I said, was there anything I missed that you guys thought was also really good or bad? Please let me know. I know this was a bit of a 3.1 glaze fest, but hey, what can I say? I thought it was really fucking good, okay? I don't glaze without reason. I try not to glaze without reason, so I think it deserved the glaze personally. So Yeah, let me know in the comments down below. And also join the Discord server if you want to come chat, hang out, have a good time. And apart from that, thank you so much for watching, YouTube. I hope you guys enjoyed my review. Like, subscribe, and also, yeah, that's about it. That's about it. I guess I will see you guys soon for the Luuk story. Again, maybe we'll do like a mini story review for the Luuk story quest when it comes out. And yeah, thanks so much for watching. You take care, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Bye bye.